So I'd mentioned that I thought that Cstr, this conversion function, was not necessarily the best way of converting a number to a string. I thought it was worth exploring how the impact might be. So I'm going to write a piece of code and introduce you to a couple of things that you can use for timing code to see how quickly they run. So first of all, just so that we can get an idea of things, I'm going to set it could really be a constant, but I'm going to set it as a variable and use that to control the loop, because I'm going to have more loops. And what we're going to need as well is something to record the beginning of the time at the beginning of the loop. That's going to be as date. And something to record how long it's taken in total. Call it, oh, let's not call it long. Call it taken, as that's going to be a time span. When I first started doing these, they'd both be called dates, but Microsoft's introduced the data type time span. So you need to try things out sometimes. I found that out by having start as date and taken as date, and then trying to assign the difference between the two to a date variable, and that doesn't work because when you subtract one date from another, it creates a time span. But anyway, it tells you that a time span won't go in a date variable type, so you then realise that you need to create a time span variable. So we say that this is equal to date.now, and that will give us a timestamp. It's not just the date. It's not like it's the 24th of June today, but it actually gives us the timestamp from the computer. And if we put at the end taken equals date.now minus start, then taken will be the length of time that first test is taken to run. Now, I want to put that somewhere, so I'm actually going to, on our screen, open this up a little bit more. I'm going to put in an extra text box here, and that's going to hold our results. That's going to be text box 2, make that multi-line as well. There are, by the way, other alternatives to using text box and making them multi-line, which we'll look at later. Anyway, so that's just expanded the form slightly. And now I can say textbox2 dot append text, and we're going to say this is the Cstr loop, and we use an ampersand to append two strings together or concatenate them. We can also use the plus, but that can be fraught with a little difficulty in VB because of the way it treats things. So we can look at that later as well. So that, when I run that, that should just tell me how long it's taken to run this 10,000 times. So let's do it to start with. Put the window in there. While it's doing it, you can see that it's refreshing the screen each time. Yes, so it's having to write the text on the screen. That is actually quite a long-winded affair. So that's taken us 8.7 seconds to do 10,000. Not marvellously speedy. So let's close that. Does it make any difference if we do the same thing but using actually, just before I do that, but using the ToString, which I thought was faster? Let's find out. So we can copy and paste this piece of code. If I highlight that, Control C, down one line, Control V to paste. And this is going to be, before I forget it, the ToString variant. Okay. So now we're going to run it. It'll run twice, so this should take about 16 seconds to run if they're both similar. It's quite a good idea to do this sort of test from time to time with things that you think you know how they behave, I discovered in this case, for instance, that they're actually basically normally the same. That can vary slightly depending on whether your computer has to do something else in the meantime. So it's worth being aware there can be some variation. But look, they're very, very similar in time. I normally actually get ToString being very slightly shorter than Cstr. So it is variable. The interesting thing though, we can also, if we don't have to update it one at a time, so if the thing could be updated as a whole batch, if we dim lines as, it's going to be a variable, we'll make it count long as strings, we could say for num equals 1 to count, lines of num, whoops, equals, may as well use Cstr of num. And, oh no, we don't need to put the and VBCRLF in here because we're updating the actual individual lines in it, which automatically come with line feeds in between them. Then if we say text box, box 1 dot lines equals lines, what I've forgotten to do here is put my timing code in, so I'm going to grab that from there and paste that in there. Take those two from there and paste them in the bottom. Now this is updating lines in bulk. So we should see that this ends up with the same thing. So we'll run that again. What this is doing is, instead of accessing and adding an extra line each time by appending something to the end of a long string which gets longer and longer, it's assigning things to the array which sits behind the text box. So there's an array which shows each line or holds each line, and you'll see here, look, first one takes 8.66, second one takes 8.66, 7. Updating them this way takes 0.069 seconds. Much, much faster way to do it. Works if you don't have to see each update as it comes on the screen. Similarly though, there is another one which is just worth having a quick look at. I can use this as an example. Go down and copy those. Because what we can do, most of the time taken is actually taken in showing this on the screen as it updates. So no view. What I'm going to do is say here that text box box 1 is not visible. Oop. And excuse me. Now, we'll do this within the timing loop just to make it fair. Oops, visible equals true. Right, and we'll see how long this takes. So we'll run through the whole lot again. So what we've got here is a quick comparison. Well, I suppose it's not all that quick anymore, really, but a quick comparison between how long it takes to do the ToString and the Cstr function. How long it takes to just update the lines and then copy them across wholesale rather than having each one individually. And here we go, how long it takes to append but not show them on the screen until afterwards. And you'll see here our first, our updating the lines takes 0.069, updating them and then making the whole lot visible at the same time, ever so slightly slower, but it does show that the vast majority of that time taken is in updating the screen. So it's worth being aware of the fact that updating the screen can take a very long time. Okay, that was a quick run through some timing of things. There are other ways as well, by the way, of doing timings, but this is a quick and dirty way that you can do it in any piece of code. So have a play with those sorts of ideas, and whenever you're writing code, have a think about whether there are multiple ways of doing things and whether you might be able to do it more quickly.